Welcome back. You're still watching Market View. This is the Monday edition. Today on the program, we talk to the Minister of Finance, Honorable Neil Rackenberg, who is fresh from tabling a 32.61 billion emalangeni budget on Friday. The minister explains why some sectors received increased budgets whilst others were reduced. In a detailed interview with business journalist Nelson Ndlamandla, the minister addresses an outcry that the money allocated for salary reviews is not enough, further giving an explanation on whether anything has been budgeted for the Phase 2 salary review for junior police officers.
Honorable Minister, congratulations on delivering the budget speech. We want to know, Minister, we have seen that some sectors have received a larger chunk of the budget. I'll make an example. Social transfers, they stand at 1.07 billion emalangeni, and some sectors have received smaller fractions. What influenced this budget, Honorable Minister?
Number one, the main narrative in the budget is to try and grow the economy. Because as I've said a few times, we've got two big problems in the country. It's poverty and unemployment. The economy grows, more people get employed and people get better pay when the economy grows. And when that happens, poverty gets sorted out. So a strong drive has been economic growth in this budget. And so and that's why you'll find that the capital budget, normally you find recurrent budget percentage increases more than capital budget percentage. But this year we managed to swing it, where recurrent budget percentage was 8 point something percent and capital budget percentage was 14 point something percent growth. And so that I think has been the main narrative. Now, when it comes to individual numbers, it's a matter of trying to also understand where the pressures are, where what we need to do to try and make sure there's never enough. There's never enough budget for any other ministry. Every ministry will be not even wanting more, needing more than what they currently get. And so, but it's a matter of just trying to prioritize those needs, which are the most urgent needs, which are the ones that can give us a quick return so that we can try and get the economy to a point where we can better fund ministries to do what they need to do. That's kind of the main narrative behind it. But again, it's a huge process we go through before we get to a budget. The ministries come and present to PBC and then they unpack all of their requirements. Then we take that, we analyze it. And then from the analysis from PPC, it then goes to Cabinet. Cabinet then looks at it, turns it around a few times, comes back, asks questions, we come back and we respond. Then it'll go to Parliament. So it's a very long, tedious process. But we believe that ultimately it is the best balance of where the money can go.
We have seen a decline in the budget for the Minister of ICT, Honorable Minister, and yet the business community has been anticipating that it will be much higher this year, especially because the world is moving into the digital era space. What has influenced this?
Good question, Nelly. I do believe that if you actually to analyze the budget, you'll find the actual budget for expenditure has actually gone up in the Ministry of ICT. But we do have, in every ministry, we have projects. So there were two big projects, the Ministry of ICT. The one was building the data center and the sites for it, and the other one was the biotechnology park. So what you'll find is by now, both of these projects, I think there's still a little bit of work on the biotechnology park, but I think both of these are virtually completed by now. And so hence you'll find the capital budget is less. But the recurrent budget for doing their work, if I'm not mistaken, has actually gone up in the year coming.
Well said, Honorable Minister. I want us to come to the issue of implementing this budget. From the recent Auditor General's report, we are continuing to see unaccounted for expenditures from different ministries. How are you going to deal with this and ensure that the monies go to their intended projects?
So look, again, it's very difficult to spend money because Treasury needs a lot of documentation before they actually make any payment. But at the same time, the paperwork system is not great. And that is why we were now putting in IFMIS. So we're coming with a whole something which is not, it's a paperless system. So it'll be on our computers, it'll be on our devices. The minister, do you approve this? PS, do you approve that? And it'll be a clear audit track record. It'll be impossible with the system that we're putting in to have unauthorized expenditure. It'll all have to go through the full process to be authorized. And so at the moment, most of the findings is a paper trail. There'll be some process. The balances don't balance up at the end of the year. We're definitely having those problems with our, let's call it our financial system that we have is not good. And so hence, we're busy changing that.
Honorable Minister, given that the debt to GDP ratio currently sits at 40.2%, what consideration has the minister made in terms of the likely effects of the deficit financing to the tune of 2 billion emalangeni?
Correct. So at the moment, the deficit this year is I think it's 2.88 billion emalangeni, and or this coming year. And at the same time, what we are anticipating is decent growth. So we're anticipating 8.3% growth. At the same time, we're anticipating the higher tax returns. And again, these things don't come from someone just guessing or someone doing. There's a deep analysis. There's an analytical process that goes through before we end up with these numbers. And so, for that reason, with us projecting our 8.3% growth, we know how much money we can loan so that our debt to GDP does not go up, because we are trying not to increase our debt to GDP beyond the 40.5 around that mark. Keeping in mind, we still have a stock of arrears. Arrears is debt. So we might still need to take on some debt. We've got 2 loans for debt we're going to take on, purely to move that debt from where it is now with not paying suppliers, which is very unhealthy for our economy, to move it onto formal debt platforms, and at least then everybody gets paid and our economy runs smooth. So we'll see what that does to our debt to GDP ratio. But in the current year, the reason why we can actually loan a little bit more money is because of our growth that has been projected. Now, we'll see by the time we get to the end of the year, was our growth projections right? If they are right, that means that we will remain in our debt to GDP ratio. If they are higher, which means our ratio goes down. If they're lower, the ratio goes up. Then we correct it next year. And next year we say, no, now we need to do this to continue to get in the right direction. So it's a management of the figures overall that give us the right balance at the end of the day.
I understand, Minister. Then this brings me to my other question. Given that we do anticipate increases in the GDP, is it sustainable to increase our debt with increases in the GDP? Because, Honorable Minister, the GDP can grow, but people may not pay taxes. They may invest back into their businesses and not pay the taxes.
No, so again, tax, ERS has a very brilliant forecasting team. And the reason why they're brilliant, they must keep in mind that the people at ERS also get it. If they do hit the tax thresholds that they have put forward, the bonuses are paid to the people working there. So they don't just willy-nilly come with a number and say, oh, let's shoot a number in the air and hope we're going to get it. They really do analyze that properly to make sure that they really can get it. Now, yes, a 2 billion increase is a huge increase in the tax we're planning to collect, especially because we're not increasing taxes. We're looking at a little bit of sin tax, but it's negligible compared to the tax increase. And so with that increase being quite substantial, we are quite confident that ERS will be able to deliver on their mandate. And in the year that we are in, it was 14.5 billion. As we speak, there are hundreds spot on track, slightly over even on the collections to date for the current financial year.
Whilst at that, Minister, we know that part of the budget is funded by grants and foreign aid. We know that in the Ministry of Health, PEPFAR plays a big role in terms of funding that budget. But it is information that's been out there for a while now that PEPFAR will be on pause for 90 days. How is the minister or government planning to finance that gap?
Okay, so in the budget speech, I did touch on the fact that, we are in discussions with them, and I think we did touch on the fact that we are very fortunate that in the cuts that they have made, they haven't cut the most critical part, which is the funding of ARVs. At the moment, PEPFAR does help us as a country with the funding of ARVs, especially for children. And so you find that that funding was fortunately not cut by PEPFAR, as well as all the critical expenditure that goes with those items. That really is what you call life-saving expenditure. But at the same time, certain expenditure was cut. So what we will have to do as a country is to see what ultimately, by the time the 90-day pause is finished, to see what exactly now, where does the dust settle with this matter, look at what was cut, then analyze it to say, as a government, do we believe we need to somehow try and do something about it, which will be very difficult. There's not extra money lying somewhere for this. And then if we believe so, we'll have to then try and deal with it at that point. But to jump the gun right now and to say, well, in case they don't, let us budget for money that you don't have for something which you might not need, wouldn't have been a wise move at that stage for government.
I promise, Minister, this is my last question. There has been an outcry from civil servants that the 500,000 that has been allocated for salary reviews is not enough. What can you say to them, Honorable Minister?
So again, I think there's a bit of an outcry on the 500,000,000 emalangeni has been set aside for the salary review exercise. And I think we need to understand, and is that even though our civil servants are a critical part of our, let's call it our family makeup of what we need in a country to have a country succeed, if one had to give a 2 or 3 billion emalangeni to Cola, the different numbers that have been put aside, or let's call it the salary review, it means that this year there's nothing left for any other ministry in the country. And in a sense, like I say, if we are a family all sitting around the table and we dish up on the table and only one party on the table eats all the food, everyone else sits there looking at the one eating the food, it wouldn't be fair on the country. So unfortunately, we do plead to the civil servants to say, please understand, because we don't know what the salary review exercise is going to say, to budget 2-3 billion and leave all the money for salary review exercise is something that wouldn't have been a wise decision as a country. There's a lot of needs that need fulfilling. When the salary review is finalized, we will obviously analyze it at that point and then see what we can do. We do have a contingency fund. For the first time ever, we have 350 million in a contingency fund in the budget, which means if there's something that comes up, which is a big surprise, like possible, US cuts in the budget allocations, or a salary review that needs to be funded, we can come with a supplementary budget. We could possibly phase it into different years after negotiation. There's many different ways to consider this, but it won't be wise to do that before the review is actually done and we know what is in the review. And so for that reason, we just plead for everyone to remain calm, and we'll definitely see as we go how this matter unfolds.
I think there's also been that talk around the phase 2 for junior officers. Maybe the minister can also share clarity on that.
So the junior officers, as far as I understand it, is all part of the salary review exercise. And my opinion is looking at the junior police with the salary review exercise is the wisest way to do it, because number one, they can look at all the facts. It's not a simple thing to look at. There's a lot of things that have happened in the meantime since the promise was made, since the review to now. All that must be considered. We're paying these consultants a lot of money to do a deep dive into it, as well as by the time the outcome is there for what it should be, it needs to be part of the holistic picture. And so hence, the consultants that are working on a salary review, doing it for the junior police officers, I feel is the wisest way. It's going to be coming out soon now, and I'm sure that it'll be a very fair outcome, not only for them, but for the holistic civil servants.
Having you on the show is always a pleasure, Honorable Minister, and thank you so much for always taking your time to speak to us.
And that was the Minister for Finance, Neil Rackenberg, explaining why some sectors received increased budgets and whilst others were reduced. Let's go for an ad break. When we return, we talk to Mr. Eswatini for today's financial markets.